everyone, myself Padmaja, Associate Professor, Department of CSE, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. In this video, today we are going to discuss about problem-solving questions using list data structure in Python. So, before moving on to the problem solving, let us first discuss about the definition of list. So, list is an ordered and mutable Python container. That means it is one of the most common data structures where the elements are in index order and it is mutable in nature. That means you can change the elements of this data type. Now, it is one of the most popular data structure because in most of the applications, you need to use a list, and it is heterogeneous in nature. That means multiple data type of elements, multiple elements of different types can be placed inside a square bracket and we will call it as a list here. So for creating a list, there is a list constructor also available and the elements are referred in a list from left to right and right to left. Both ways the elements are referred. So if you are referring any element from left to right, then we will use the positive indexing, that is from 0, 1, 2 and so on. If you are referring the elements from right to left, then we will use negative indexing, -1, -2, -3 and so on. So this is just the definition of list. List provides a number of powerful methods and it is very useful in multiple applications. Now, today we will discuss about some of the applications or we will execute a number of programs related to list. So let us switch over to our idle window or idle text editor for doing the Python programs. Now, this is the text editor and let us write down our first program. Now, first program is to check. First program is to read a number and check whether the number is a perfect number or not. Whether the number is a perfect number or not. Now, how to check the number is perfect or not? To check whether the number is perfect or not, first of all, we have to find out the factors of the number. So, if the sum of the factors is equal to the original number again, then we will say that that number is a perfect number. Otherwise, it is not a perfect number. For example, the number 6 is there. So, for the number 6, the factors are 1, 2 and 3. So, if you will add it up, the factors 1 plus 2 plus 3, again, we will get the same sum as 6. Therefore, 6 is a perfect number. Similarly, if you talk about another number 28, if you will add it up all its factor, it is also a perfect number. But if you will talk about a number 15, then if you will add it up the factors of this number, then you will not get the original number 15. So, it is not a perfect number. So, in this program, we are going to read a number and we are going to find out the factors of the number and we will store the factors of the number in a list and then we will find out the sum of the factors. Then the sum of the factors will compare with the original number and then decide whether it is a perfect number or not. Let us start writing the program. So, first of all, read a number. So, num is you have to read this number, int of input of enter a number. Now, after reading the number, initially, let us take sum is equal to 1. Let us take initially sum is equal to 1 and here we have to give the ending quote. Okay. Now, let us take a list where you will store the factors and initially this list contains only 1 because 1 is the common factor for all the numbers. So, let us store 1 into the factor list. Now, first of all, you have to go for creating a list of all factors. That means we have to find out the factors, all factors of a number. So, for that, let us write let us write down a loop for I in range of, as 1 is the common factor for all the numbers, so we'll check for the factors from 2 to the number, up to that number. So, if the number modulus I, if it is divisible, if num modulus I equals to 0, then that number is a factor. So, what we will do? We will append that number to our factor list. Okay. So, factor list dot append method will use and will append that particular number. So, if it is divisible, then we'll find out the sum of numbers also. So, sum is equal to sum plus that number I. So, this process we will repeat from 2 to that number. So, if the number is 6, then we will start from 2. We will check 2 is that num modulus I is equal to 0 or not. So, we will go for 6 modulus 2, then 6 modulus 3, 6 modulus 4, 6 modulus 5. We will repeatedly do this process and we will find out the factors and we will append to the factor list. Okay. Now, once this factor list is ready, now we'll write down the condition, checking the condition for perfect number. So, how will you check the condition? So, for that, let us write down. In the loop, we are finding out the sum. So, if the sum is same as the original number, then let us print that it is a perfect number. Otherwise, it is not a perfect number. Let us write down the else part and write it is not a perfect number. Okay. Now, the program writing is over. Let us save the program and run it. So, the program name is perfect number. Now, let us go for running. Run this module. Enter a number. Suppose if the number is 6, then it is a perfect number. Yes. Let us go for another test case. If the number is 28, then also it is a perfect number. Yes. The output is correct. Now, let us check for another number. Suppose the number is 15, then it is not a perfect number. So, like that, 2-3 test cases we have checked and we have written the program for a perfect number. So, this is the way you should write a perfect number program logic. Now, let us move on to the next program. Now, in this program, we will print even numbers in a range in the form of a list. So, we will read the starting range and the ending range of two numbers. We will read the starting number and the ending number. Between these two numbers, how many even numbers are there, we will find it out and we will append to a list. And finally, we are going to print a list. Okay. So, for that, let us take one list, even list, and initially this list is empty. Now, let us read what is the start value. So, start value is int of input of, enter the starting number. Similarly, read the ending number. Int of input of, enter the ending number. Okay. So, after reading the range, then what you have to do? We have to check whether the numbers are even or not. So, let us write down a loop for I in range of from the starting number till end number. So, n plus 1 will do as the stopping criteria. Okay. Now, check if every number is an even number or not. So, if I modulus 2 is equal to 0, then obviously the number is an even number. So, if it is an even number, then append it to the even list. So, even list dot append is a method. So, append the numbers to the even list. Okay. Now this process will go on for all the numbers in the range. Now finally print all the even numbers in the range. So let us print the list even underscore list. Okay. Now let us save this program, even list, and then try running it. So when you run this program, it is asking you to give the starting range. Suppose the starting range is 100, ending range is 130. Then you can see that what are the numbers which are even numbers. So 100, 102, 104, 106 and so on. These are the even numbers in this particular range. So you can take 2-3 test cases and check whether the program is working perfectly or not. So this way we can print all the numbers whether they are even or not. So this is about the second program. Now let us move on to another program. So open a new file, and the program is to do cyclic shift of list elements. Cyclic shift of list elements. Okay. So what do you mean by cyclic shift? Suppose a list is already containing a number of elements. Suppose you want to rotate the list elements by a shifting of 2 elements or 3 elements or 5 elements. Then how the list elements are rotating, and after that what is the shifted list that you have to display. Okay. So for that, let me take 2 lists. One is called old list and one more is called the new list. Okay. So old list, I mean here the list of the already existing elements, or we will create a list of elements, and the new list is nothing but the list which will be prepared after doing the shifting of elements. So these are the 2 lists we have written. Now read a number. Int of input of how many elements you want to create. So enter number of list elements. Number of list elements you want to read. So for that, let us read and create a list first. So for I in range of 0 to that number, up to that number, we will create a list. Okay. Now read the values. So input of enter list item. Okay, which items you want to store, you have to read it first. And each item you need to append to the list. So old list dot append is a method, and we are appending the value to the old list. So to create a list. And what our new list contains? New list contains now only the spaces. That is nothing. So I'll write new list dot append is nothing but it contains some blank spaces. Okay. Now after this loop, this is for creating a list. Creating a list of values. So we have created the list. Now let us display the list. How will you display? Simply write down the print statement to display the content of the list. Okay. Now let me write original list is nothing but old underscore list. This is my list I am displaying. Okay. Now if you want, you can so far check the process. So program name is shifted list. Now so far we have only created the list. So let us take some elements and create a list. Enter the number of list elements. Suppose 5 elements I want to enter. First element, suppose India. Second is China. Third is UK. Then USA, fourth item. and fifth item is Canada. So my original list now contains 5 items. Now what I will do, I will ask the user how many elements you want to shift. Okay, suppose by 3 elements I want to rotate the or shift the elements of the list. That means my list should start from UK if I will shift up to 3 elements. So after shifting, my new list should be UK, USA, Canada, then India and China. So this way it should be rotated. Let us write down the logic how to rotate or shift the elements. Okay. So far we have created only a list. Now ask the user by how many elements you want to do shifting. So shifting is a number. So let us read it as int of input of enter number of places to shift. By how many places you want to shift it. Now, after that, let us write down the logic. For I in range of 0 to num, because all elements must be rotated. So the logic should be applied to the complete list. So if I plus shift is greater than is equal to num is nothing but the number of elements in the list, then what the new list will contain? New list will contain I minus shift plus 1. It is the elements will be shifted from old list of I. So from the old list, the elements will be shifted to new list. Else what will happen? New list will be I plus shift is equal to old underscore list of I. Okay, this is the logic. Now, after this, after doing the shifting, then display the shifted list. How to display? So for that we have to write down the print statement. Print the shifted list is. So how to print the shifted list? So shifted list is available in new underscore list. Okay. So we have written by how many places you want to shift the list. Then we have written the logic for how to do shifting, and we are displaying the shifted list finally. Now let us save this program and then run it. Suppose initially the number of elements are 5 and the elements are India, China, USA, UK and Canada. There are 5 list items are there, and originally the list contained these 5 items. Now enter the number of places to shift. How many places you want to shift? Suppose I want to shift it by 3 places. Then you can see that now the list first element starts with USA, UK, Canada, India and then China. This is called shifting the list element by a particular number. So this is the output of this program. So this print the output of the program in the program. So this is the logic for shifting the elements of a list over here. Now let us move on to the next program. And in this program, we are going to read a matrix and check whether the matrix is sparse matrix or not. There are 2 types of matrices. One is called dense matrix and one is called sparse matrix. So a matrix is known to be a sparse matrix if the number of zeros are more than the number of non-zero elements. That means for a matrix, if it is a m by n matrix, m by n is the total length of the matrix. If the number of zeros are more than 50% of the matrix, then it is called the sparse matrix. Otherwise, the non-zero elements are more, then it is called a dense matrix. So in this program, we will first read a matrix and then we'll count the number of zeros and non-zeros, and then we'll check how many zeros are there. If it is more than 50% of the elements, then we'll declare it as a sparse matrix. Otherwise, not. Okay, let us start with a matrix. So initially, let us take a matrix is nothing but a list. Now, let us read the number of rows and columns of a matrix. So input, enter number of rows and columns. Okay. So we are reading multiple values at a time and we are going to provide these multiple values. So let us use the split method to split those numbers. Okay. Now the numbers what we have provided at the command line, those are normally strings. So let us convert it into integer by writing int of m and n is equal to int of n. So the number of rows and columns are now our integers. Now let us go for reading a matrix, reading elements into a matrix. So how to read elements? For that, loop within loop we have to write. So outer loop is for number of rows, inner loop is for number of columns. So for I in range of 0 to m, for j in range of 0 to n, number of rows and number of columns. Okay. Now read each element which you want to store into the matrix. So let us take int of input of enter the element. Now you append that element which you have read into the matrix. So matrix dot append, write down num. So every element which you are reading will be appended to the matrix. Now the matrix will be ready. Okay. Now once the matrix is ready, you can display the matrix also. So display the matrix. So how will you display the matrix? By simply writing print, okay, the matrix. So matrix is nothing but a list. Okay. So far, let us check the output of this program. So sparse underscore matrix. Now let us run it. Enter the number of rows and columns. Suppose 3 rows and 3 columns. So 9 elements we have to read. So 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 0, 3, 0, 1. Yes. So 9 elements I have given. Now my matrix is displayed. So the matrix is displayed in the form of a list so far. Now next target is to check whether it is sparse matrix or not. So for that, first of all, let us find out the length of the matrix, which is nothing but m into n is the length of the matrix. And initially, the number of zeros take as a counter is, and number of non-zeros are also 0. So zeros and non-zeros are the two counters which you have taken for counting the number of zeros in the matrix. Now let us write down the logic for checking the matrix is sparse or not. So how will you check? So for that, again, take a look for k in range of 0 to the length of the matrix. Each and every element we need to check it. Now check if each element in the matrix of k, if that element is equal to 0, then we have to increment the 0 counter. Otherwise, we have to increment the non-zero counter. So zeros plus is equal to 1. Okay. Else non-zeros counter should be incremented. So non-zeros plus is equal to 1. Okay. Now Through this logic, we are just counting how many zeros are there and how many non-zero elements are there in this matrix. Now next what we will do, we will write down the logic. If the number of zeros is greater than m into n by 2, we can say take m into n is nothing but length by 2. That means greater than equals to, we will write down here, more than 50% elements are zeros, then we will simply write it is sparse matrix. It is sparse matrix. Otherwise, we will write it is not a sparse matrix. Right. So, the logic writing is over. Now, let us save this program and run it again. Now, number of rows and number of columns are 3 and 3. So, 9 elements I have to enter. So, you can see the matrix is displayed and it is a sparse matrix. Now, let us go for running the program again for another test case. Suppose the number of elements are 2, number of rows are 2, number of columns are 3. So, 6 elements I have to enter. So, 6 elements I have entered and you can see that the number of zeros are less than the 50%. So, it is not a sparse matrix. Now, this is the program for sparse matrix. Now, let us go for another program. Let us write a program to form sentences with different combination of words. So, how to form the sentences with the different combinations of words. This is the program. Now, let us take one list called person. So, where we are writing the strings I and we. Okay. Now, take another list called choice. So, where we are writing two choices. A person can hate or a person can like. So, like and hate are the two strings over here. Now, let us take another list called hobby. So, in that, let us take two types of hobbies. One is called driving and the other one is called swimming. Okay. Now write down the loop for forming the sentences out of this 6 strings. Okay. 3 lists we have. So, out of this 3 lists, we have to make the combination of by taking each string from each list and you have to form a sentence. So, as there are 3 lists are there, you have to understand that we need to write 3 loops. So, we will write down the nested loops now to form the sentences. Now, for I in range of, how far we will go? We will read the entire list. First list we have to read. So, that is length of person. Person is the first list. Okay. And second list is for j in range of. Second list also entirely you have to read. So, length of choice. And third list for k in range of length of your hobby is the third list. Okay. That means for I, for the first string I, it will take 2 combinations. For first word is hate. Hate will be combined with driving. Then hate will be combined with swimming. That means I had driving, I had swimming. Then it will take I second word from the second list, that is like. Okay, I like driving, I like swimming. So this way it will do combination. Then it will again go to the outer loop. Then it will choose the second word or second string from person. So it will associate with hate and like. We hate driving, we hate swimming. Then we likes driving and we like swimming. So it has to frame the sentence in this form. So how it will frame the sentence? So let us write down the logic. So sentence is equal to percentile S, percentile S, percentile S. Okay. Now we will use formatting over here. One word from person of I, then comma, one word from choice of J, comma, one word from hobby of K. Okay, and then we will print that sentence. Okay, so this is the logic. So let us save sentence formation and then run this program. Yes, now you can see I is combined with I hate swimming and I hate driving. Then I like driving, I like swimming. Similarly, we is associated with we hate driving, we hate swimming, and we like swimming and we like driving. So this is the output of this program. This is called forming the sentences with a different combination of words. And for doing this program, we need the help of list. So this is a simple program where we have to read the values from multiple lists and frame the sentences. In this video, we have discussed about how to do programming using the list concept in Python. Hope today's video you have understood it. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.